Credit card sales at gun stores would be flagged under new code. The move was approved by a group that sets standards for business transactions, but it was unclear how companies and banks would carry it out. This was written for the New York Times by Andrew Ross Sorkin, published on September 9th, 2022. This is a part of a series called the DealBook Newsletter, and in it they have columnists for the New York Times, such as Andrew Ross Sorkin and his Times colleagues. They help make sense of major business and policy headlines and the power brokers who shape them. I'll continue reading. An organization that sets standards for business transactions has voted to create a special code for gun stores to use when processing credit and debit card transactions, a move long sought by gun safety advocates who say it will help law enforcement officials spot suspicious purchases. Now, I don't know how to feel about this exactly because I am for gun control, some actual legitimate gun control in the US, but do I think that private businesses should be monitoring what we purchase and tracking that information and sending it to law enforcement? Ideally not. But I do believe as of right now, as I process this information through my mind, I am in favor of this. Though I would not like to see expanded monitoring of our purchases through the business vendors that we go through. But even right now, as it is right now, there is no other solution to try to at least monitor who is buying these AR-15s and all these guns and many rounds of ammunition. If these people, if gun control advocates don't like this monitoring that will happen from these card processing companies, why don't you actually vote for or support actual gun control? Because we cannot continue to have the level of violence and mass shootings in America. Americans are sick of it. So gun control advocates, if you don't want to be monitored or tracked for purchasing these weapons, why don't you actually vote for some actual gun control? Why don't you actually support actual gun control? Because something has to be done to stop the rampant violence. I'll continue reading. The decision by the group, the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, is likely to set off a political firestorm in Washington and around the country, as well as a debate among banks and companies about how and even whether to follow the new standard. ISO did not respond to requests for comment, but on Friday, Amalgamated Bank, which has helped lead the effort, received a letter reviewed by the New York Times confirming the decision. I hope this doesn't become too politicized because I think, at the very least, I would hope that all Americans, regardless of their views about guns or the Second Amendment, would advocate for at least monitoring who is buying guns, right? As we'll see in this article, the majority of mass shootings or shootings in general that happen in the U.S. are done by legal gun owners, people who legally purchase their gun. This is a fact. It's a myth that most of the shootings in the U.S. are done by, people with illegal guns, right? Maybe they were not allowed to have a gun. That could be possibly true. But the majority of the most heinous mass shootings happened by people who legally purchase weapons, right? Um, this approval is an important step towards improving coordination with law enforcement and preventing gun violence, said Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat of Massachusetts, one of the lawmakers who have been vocal on the issue. In order for this new merchant code to be maximally effective, every financial institution and payment system needs to step up and put it to use. Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, called the decision a big victory, adding, "I urge credit card companies to take the next step and flag suspicious transactions on gun and ammunition sales like they do for fraud and money laundering. Many of the banks and credit card companies in question are based in New York." Here are some small dots on gun violence in America. 2022 mass shootings. Gun violence is a persistent American problem. A partial list of mass shootings this year offers a glimpse at the scope. There have been over 560 mass shootings in 2022 alone, and a mass shooting is when 4 or more people are shot or killed at one time, including the shooter. spike in permits. Hundreds of people in New York rushed to get permits to carry concealed handguns in public before a new gun law went into effect in the state in an effort to avoid the training and paperwork required by the legislation. This is the thing: whenever there's actual gun reform or gun control in America, people just insist on getting their own gun instead of seeing that they're a part of the problem by making these big companies even richer so they can sell their products even more. They say, I need a gun before it becomes illegal, which is stupid. It's really dumb. It's really dumb. A city awash in guns. Alarms have sounded about gun violence across the city over the past 2 years, but Philadelphia is one of the few major cities where it truly is as bad as it has ever been. Yes, so Philadelphia has had horrible, horrible mass shootings this year, and I cover Philadelphia extensively on my channel. But if there are too many guns in your city, in your state, in your country, it does not matter how strict the gun laws are because people can transport these guns across state lines into different cities. And also, I would say that, yeah, if there are too many illegal guns in your city, that means that there is a black market, and a black market is only formed when people can purchase something legally first and then sell it to others who do not have the ability or the right to have it. Warning signs. While some mass shootings are committed by people with mental illnesses, experts believe that a life crisis may be a better predictor that a person may become violent. This is not true. This is a myth, okay? Because if you're talking about the mass shootings of like the 18-year-old in Uvalde who went into a school and killed all of those first graders, right? That is a person with mental illness. But the majority of mass shootings, by the metric that I pointed out earlier, are not done by people who are going through mental health crises. These are people who are in the heat of the moment, passion. Look at the stories that I cover on my channel of the several different sorts of mass shootings, okay? If we look at the mass shootings as only when, I don't know, 15 people are killed at one time by a random shooter, yes, that would be an example of somebody with mental illness. And then if, at that metric, we would only have, what, 10 mass shootings a year in the U.S., even though that's quite high, definitely higher than other countries. But I would say that a life crisis, I don't know. I'd have to look deeper into that. But as it is right now, I'm not trying to argue with the experts. I just believe that maybe the experts and I are looking at this through different metrics and lenses. If they look at only the big popular mass shootings, yeah, sure, mental illness, life crisis, whatever. If we look at the majority of mass shootings that go underreported or underreported in the U.S., it's much higher, and it's not due to mental illness. All right. A series of articles in the Times in 2018 identified that the guns used in a majority of the most deadly mass shootings in America had been bought legally with credit cards. The majority of mass shootings in the U.S. are caused by people who legally purchase their guns. Legally. None of the purchases were flagged by credit card companies or banks. Virtually every retailing category in the United States has a code that is attached to each credit card transaction. Hair salons have one code, for example, while movie theaters have another. But until now, there was no code for gun stores, often making those transactions indistinguishable within the financial system from those at a retailer that sold fishing rods or tents. Gun rights advocates say giving gun stores a specific code, known as a merchant category code, could be used to block gun transactions or track gun owners. That would be excellent. I'm not for companies tracking people, but I do think it's important that they start to at least monitor who is buying these guns, right? And maybe this month, and so many. It's funny because so many of the gun owners are probably like QAnon conspiracy theorists or anti-vaxxers who believe there are microchips in the vaccine. So they're like, I'm not gonna get tracked by Bill Gates with his Pfizer vaccine, so I'm gonna go buy me an AR-15 or a shotgun. And meanwhile, everywhere they take this shotgun is being tracked. That would be hilarious. The irony. Anyway, after the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, Congress passed a law aimed at preventing domestic terrorism that generally requires banks to flag suspicious transactions. But banks do not know what individual items were purchased with a credit card or if a retailer is a gun seller. Gun safety advocates hope the new merchant code will change this. Most credit card companies and banks have either fought the new code or been silent on the issue. For several years, Visa and MasterCard have opposed adding the code. Behind the scenes, some company officials favored the code, but they publicly rejected it out of fear of angering politicians who support gun rights. Too much fear in America related to the people who support the Second Amendment, I'm not scared. I'd tell the people, screw them. You know, it doesn't matter what they think. It matters about saving our children's lives. And I don't care about, angering the electorate or the politicians who are just in the pockets of the NRA and the gun manufacturing lobbying machine. You guys have bought into propaganda. You guys are not good Americans. You guys are traitors to America because you worship the gun and you worship these gun manufacturers and the military industrial complex more than you do the Constitution that you say you claim to love. Amalgamated Bank made an application to ISO for the code this spring, arguing that it was necessary to identify credit risk. It had also applied for the code earlier in the year but was rejected. After Amalgamated reapplied for the code, it received support from political leaders across the country. Dozens of senators and members of Congress sent the credit card companies letters supporting the proposal. Several pension funds called for the card companies to disclose whether they supported or had tried to reject the code. It appears the campaign worked. We all have to do our part to stop gun violence, Priscilla Sims Brown, the president and chief executive of Amalgamated Bank, said in a statement on Friday. The new code will allow us to fully comply with our duty to report suspicious activity and illegal gun sales to authorities without blocking or impeding legal gun sales. Listen, once again, I'm not for tracking people or monitoring people, but you can't have a law that says, track the purchases of people, flag them down if they look suspicious, and not include gun sales in that. Like, how does that make sense? If you're trying to stop the next terrorist attack, which was what the law was for if it was post 9/11, how are you not going to track gun sales, right? As well. I mean, that's just obvious. All right. It is unclear, however, whether the new code will be used. In a letter on Friday to Senator Warren and dozens of other lawmakers, Robert B. Thompson III, a senior vice president of Visa, said the company is not a member of ISO and does not have authority over ISO standards and processes. We believe that asking payment networks to serve as a moral authority by deciding which legal goods can or cannot be purchased sets a dangerous precedent, he wrote. A spokesman for Visa did not reply to an email seeking comment. A spokesman for MasterCard's Seth maintained that the company believed that reducing gun violence should be the job of Congress. He said the company would turn our focus to how gun sellers and banks will put the new code into effect. It should be done by Congress, but it won't. So private industry has to step in. Capitalism has to step in, right? Because we as consumers have to voice our opinions to the gun manufacturers and the gun sellers that we disapprove of their business, and we also have to voice that to the credit card purchasers, right? People love pornography, but credit card purchasers don't want to purchase sales for pornographic material or certain or websites. Meanwhile, they allow guns to go unchecked and unmonitored while they use their service, and those literally kill people. I don't know. The irony. This is exactly how we would manage the process for any other appropriate MCC, like a bicycle shop or sporting goods store, Mr. Eisen said. Andrew Ross Sorkin is a columnist and founder and editor at large of DealBook. So, I support this as it is right now. It's not ideal. I would much rather see something more strict, more extreme to get the guns out of the street. But this is the beginning. This is a good step. So the credit card manufacturers are going to be tracking, monitoring what's happening with these gun sales. And I hope this actually does not get opposed by Congress, or they try to make it illegal just because the Second Amendment people will start to get angry or pissy about this. So, good job, credit card manufacturers. Processors like Visa and MasterCard. Thank you for watching this video. My name is Simon Hill. Peace.